You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona. With me always is my good friend,
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And I swapped places with AK Mike this week, I guess.
Yes. But it's good to have you back, buddy.
It's good to be back. I spent a little time out on the East Coast. I was doing some training for work, and it's kind of a long, drawn-out process, but I'm finally done with all that and back in the saddle. So figured when I came home this weekend that I'd give you guys a shout. And unfortunately, Arizona or AK Mike can't be here today. So I was here and he's not, and then he's here tomorrow and I'm not. So we decided to just go ahead and help me jump back on. Before we get started, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
"3D Aeroventures, adding fun to the RC hobby, one layer at a time."
Feeling weak and powerless? Sounds to me like you need A-Power batteries. When someone needs the best, they always choose the A-Team. A-Power batteries. Get on the web and get yours today.
And we're back. And so it was a good time. I missed the podcast, but it was it was a fun time. I got a new position at work, and so it's I think it was time, and I got a new airplane, new position, and now we're just kind of seeing how all this works.
And
so
they helped you with that landing problem, right?
They did, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank goodness.
So I got all that worked out as well. Funny, that is funny. So
Put the gear down.
right,
So many glitches.
The crazy thing too is that because I was gone almost 2 months, right? The school they send you to is about a 2 month period, and so I missed flying with the guys. I missed flying altogether. I was too busy with my head in the books, and I even had an opportunity, I think, at one point to be part of your podcast. I could have called in on it.
We tried.
Tried.
It
just wasn't going to work, and I couldn't get my side to work to give you a call. But anyway, it's good to be back. So I'm kind of excited. And when I came back, I was able to fly with the guys on Tuesday, so that was pretty fun.
So you got a little park flying in.
I did, and it was kind of funny. A good story, kind of to talk about. The guys were happy to see me. Right, they were all trying to catch up, and some of them haven't seen me since I was out of the hospital with COVID. And
that's right. Yeah, because you came back, and I think you flew with them in March or April.
Yeah, something like that.
You've been busy with other stuff, so you've been gone.
Yeah, I was still on oxygen when I went out there. I think I was dragging my O2 tank behind me.
Your little bottle.
I was just happy to get out of the house. I've been stuck in there for so long. However, I went out there and where everybody was flying, and so Phil got a new. Well, it's not really a new, but he has a. I think it's a multiplex like Sky Surfer. Does that sound familiar? Something like that. I'm not
the brand Sky Surfer, like a Bixler type of plane.
Yes, it's a Bixler XL, so it's a little bit bigger, and they use it for FPV, and it's a fixed wing. It's got a pusher prop on it, and he, is learning to fly FPV, both quad
Actually,
and
that plane behind me that you could probably just barely see.
Yep.
I think it looks very much like that.
Correct, it does.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a glider, right? But it's a real stable platform. And anyway, he's got a radio for it. It's a Tyrannus radio. And he tells me, he's like, "Oh, I'm so excited. I just put a flight controller in this airplane." And I was like, oh, good. And so he's like, we're going to test it out. So he launches it. He's flying it around. And you can see he's just real nervous. He's flying it, and it's not really, it's climbing and turning, and it's not really super windy, but it'd be better. He's having a hard time trimming it. He's just trying to hold on.
That's kind of odd because, since that plane's kind of a hybrid, right? Kind of a gliderish thing, and, with the washout in the wings, and, they're built to be stable. So
they are stable, and it wasn't like he was flying it really crazy or anything. He just was nervous because he had all this FPV gear in it.
Oh,
now before he flew it with no FPV gear, right? So he could fly the airplane. The airplane flew fine, but now he put a flight controller,
all the expensive little trim,
all of very expensive stuff, and he doesn't want this thing. So now his heart rate's up, and he's out there, and there is a little bit of a wind above the tree line, and so he kind of manipulates it around and gets it in and lands. So we talk some more, and he comes walking up to me, and he says, "Hey, do you want to fly this so you can trim it out?" And I said, "Well, that's up to you. I'd be more than willing to fly it, but it's okay. I don't have a problem flying it, right? It's just I know you're nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs." And he said, "Well, I need it trimmed, and I put this flight controller in it." And I said, "Sure. It's I'll go up there." So he hands me this Taranis radio, which, by the way, is set up for FPV. So the sticks on it are about 3 inches tall. It is not made for a thumb flyer like me, right? It's made to sit in a tray, in a chair, and fly with your, fingers pinched for these really big, tall.
That sounds more like my wrists as I'm, the sticks like this, not.
Yeah,
like
I have really short,
like I do with my fingers, 3-inch sticks. Wow.
Well, I mean, not really 3 inches, but they're very, very tall. Tall enough that when I'm holding it, my thumbs are almost at, almost
You're getting a cramp.
Exactly.
Your thumbs.
So anyway, he hands it to me, and Charlie was there, and he laughed, and he was like, he looked at me, and I'm like, wow, this is really tall sticks. And he's like, yeah, it's not really meant for thumb flyers like you. And I said, evidently, because, so I tried to put, 2 fingers and kind of pinch fly it, but I just kind of dropped the radio and put my thumbs out and kind of flew it around. So they launch it for me, and the thing is really has it's a pusher, so it's got a kind of the weird angle. Right. Like on the Bixler, it's the prop kind of gets up and it just kind of scoots along. So I gave it about half throttle, and I was climbing, and it really wanted to pitch up. And so I was trying to, find the switches to trim, and I finally got it trimmed to where it was flying level, but it was in a constant rotating turn. And so I was trying to figure out if that was the wind or the ailerons or, what have you. And so I finally got it, into the wind. I slowed it down about half throttle, and I got it trimmed. Where now it's just going straight, right? It's not turning left or right. I got a proper amount of rudder, proper amount of aileron in the elevator. So I just pulled the power off and made another adjustment or two on the elevator, and now it's just gliding around, and he's standing next to me, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so nervous, watching you fly this thing." And I was like, "Why?" I mean, it's fine. And so I held the radio up with like one hand. I didn't even have my hands on the sticks or nothing. I just held the radio up so he could see that
it was all trimmed.
It's flying perfectly. There was nothing, no controls being input, and the airplane was just flying. But right as I did that, I wasn't really thinking about it. It went behind this tree, and so now his heart rate really.
Wait.
Really
you gotta explain this so our listeners and our viewers. It wasn't like there was a 50-foot high maple or oak standing.
Oh no.
Trees. You have to explain about the height you were flying and what kind of tree. Where this tree.
Yeah, so it's I can't remember what kind. It's an ash tree or some kind of Japanese maple or whatever. But anyway, it's not a very tall tree, but it's shaped like a lollipop.
12, 14 feet high.
Yeah, maybe 12, 14, because I have had to climb the tree to get my airplane out of it. But it's very close to the park bench that we fly. And so there's this row of trees that kind of define the park. And we fly, left and right, and we're normally we don't fly past the tree line because, the trees are there. They're not in anybody's way. The airplane has plenty of room.
Right.
If I'm going to use the whole area, I walk out to the tree line, but I just happen to be standing at the park bench on the sidewalk.
Right. And this tree is like right off to the right of the bench. There's a little sidewalk that's right in front of the bench, sidewalk, and then there's the field, and then there's this little short, 14-foot high tree bush, whatever, sitting just off of the sidewalk. And if you're at the bench, right, or if you're at the bench controlling something and you haven't walked out in the field and walked past that tree, or even with the tree, if you're flying something and it flies to your right, as you're looking at it coming from left to right, as you turn your head, whoop, it goes behind the tree.
It goes behind the tree,
and you're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. Now there's plenty of room.
The field, you got plenty of field's fine, but it's that tree. Oops, let me block the view.
And because you're standing because you're standing so close to it, it seems bigger than it is, right?
Yeah.
So the canopy, we've been getting a lot of rain in Arizona, evidently, and so these trees are just full of greenery, which normally you can see through the branches because there's hardly any leaves. But in this particular case, it was just this big blinding green canopy. And anyway, I was standing there with this radio in my hand, so I didn't even have any control. I just was, trying to prove a point. So at that point, I was like, oh, man. And so I had to wait till it came out the other side of the tree. And that seemed like forever for Phil because he just was, he did the same thing. He was standing right next to me. He saw the airplane go behind the tree and he just was like, oh, but I didn't panic. I mean, the airplane was flying in a straight line. I just waited, right? I mean, we've talked about that before. You just kind of wait and then the airplane will, it did what you told it to do. Don't change anything if you can't see it. Wait for it to come back into view or give it something that it's going to do. Don't yank back on the stick. And so I gave it some throttle because I knew that if I gave it throttle, the nose would kind of pitch up and it would start climbing. And sure enough, it came out in a climb. And as soon as I got visual reference of it again, which, I mean, I could see the shadow going behind it. It wasn't like it was gone forever. It just happened to, it's very quick. And it just flew behind the tree. But anyway, it came out of the top and it started this nice, gentle turn, to the left. And so I said, well, you want to try your flight controller? He goes, yeah, let's try that. Because I said, well, now that I've got it trimmed out, you can turn the flight controller on and we'll see how it flies. And he said, yeah, let's do that. So I'm just above the tree line in this climb, and he reaches over and I hear this click, and he flipped the flight controller switch. Now, fully expecting the airplane to become a little less, how do I want to say
maneuverable. That? Typically when we turn those things, sometimes when we turn those things on, the gyro in it makes it like too stable. Yeah, I don't have much control.
It becomes a little bit more stable, and it flies a little bit differently, right?
Sure.
And so I'm expecting that. So I don't have any input on the sticks because I'm fully expecting it to just continue locked in where it is. That, my friend, is not what happened.
Tell us, Mike. What happened?
So the airplane immediately pitches into a nose down. I mean, literally, like just shoves the nose over, like I went full forward stick. And in the process, I kind of started pulling back on the stick because I saw it going forward, and it just went over faster. And at that point, it rolled inverted, and now it's just pointed at the ground.
It wanted to die. It's an assisted suicide at that point.
It was very much so. And I was like, turn it back off, because I didn't see what switch it was.
And plus it's a Franus, probably 9 or whatever. So it's got oodles of switches.
Yes. And I did not see which one he flipped. So I'm like, turn it back off. And he flipped it back off, luckily. And I was able to regain control. And I only got about, probably about 10 feet from the ground, but it was still closer, so toward the cold split. I went up above the trees and I slowed it down. And after everybody's heart rate I was like, I don't know what you did, but that did not look good at all. And of course it got everybody's attention because, I just had this thing with, showing him that no input, it was flying perfect. And he puts it in there and the thing just departed controlled flight. So I pulled the power to idle, and there was a little bit of a wind, so I was able to glide it around, and then I brought it in, landed it, skidded it right to my feet. It was probably about 5 feet away from me. So I walked over, and Charlie went with me, and of course, Phil's standing there, and I said, all right, well, something doesn't seem right. So I said, which switch did you turn, right? And he said, well, it's this one. And I said, all right. So I flipped the switch, and physically I could see the elevator go snap full nose down. And then as it was sitting at nose down, it started a slow movement to more nose down. And as it got past a certain point, the ailerons started turning as well.
Okay. All right. I think I know what's the problem already.
And I said, that is not correct. I go, that I can tell you right now that is not what's supposed to happen. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, first of all, when you flip the switch, the reason it pitched nose over is because that thing snaps into a full-on nose-down dive and then continues to like modulate down, like if you had a speed on it and it goes to the first notch and then it slowed to the second one. That's what it looked like, and the ailerons were the same way. So I'm flipping the switch up and down, and I'm looking at everything, and everything's changing. Nothing looks correct. And so I told him, I was like, yeah, this was an accident waiting to happen, because if you would have got it all trimmed and put your FPV goggles on and done this, you would not have known what was going on, because you would have just tried to figure out what's going, what just happened. I went from level flight to looking at the grass. It would have been
looking
all
up at
over
the sky.
No, you never looked at the sky. It was at the ground. It was just in this nose over.
No, looking at the sky is a reference as to after it hits and smashes into pieces.
Oh, yeah.
The camera's looking up at the sky because the nose broke off.
That's right, because the nose broke off. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, he's like, huh. So Charlie said, hey, do all that again. He picked it up, and he moved it when he had it in his hands. And sure enough, the flight controller was set reversed.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So it was, it would have been quite a devastation if he would have hand flown it. And luckily, with two of us standing there, he was able to flip the switch back off. But all I could think about was you and the A-10, flying with with Jim, and things weren't set up correctly not in the airplane, but in the software.
Right.
In the flight controller software, it was set up reversed.
Actually, that's a really common, not problem, but it happens a lot that people on their first controller like that, they get it and they set it up all correct, but they put it in to make it fit, and they forget they have to go back in there and do all the software to ensure that it's pointing, that the compass knows where it's pointing, right? So,
right.
Generally most controllers have an arrow on it. And and that's how it's set up in default. But you can set them up upside down, put them, standing up, whatever. But you have to go back in the software, tell it, hey, this is the orientation of this controller, and then everything will be cool. But most guys don't think about that. They just stick it in there and they just figure it knows what it's doing.
Sure.
Nope.
Well, we've been, what's the word I'm looking for? We've been spectators, I guess, or witnesses is the word I'm looking for. We've been witnesses to several. No, we have, right? I mean,
at the Arizona, without a doubt, right?
We were standing. That thing came on right above where we were sitting, and that was his problem too. He had put a Aura 8 in his, and had put it, facing the wrong direction. And then took off, and the airplane just went right vertical, came over the pit, and then bang, right on top of where we were sitting.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Now I remember. Yeah.
Scared the airplane crap because it was a size 60. Yeah, it was a big balsa wood airplane, and it just cratered that thing. And he was like, I don't know what happened. And the first thing we did was go in there to look, and sure enough, he had that thing backwards. So gyro, anything that you're putting in with, something that's going to control the flight surfaces, you need to make sure it's in the same, in that general vicinity. And, give it to Phil. He was like, holy smokes, I did not know that. I didn't realize that it needed a direction. And so I thought, well, that's probably a good thing to bring up. If there's people out there listening that are putting flight controllers or getting into the flight controllers or, putting gyros in it, because we've talked about them, and And so he asked me, he's like, well, how'd you like it? How did it fly? And I said, well, it's pretty funny because, for the last several months, I've been flying turbines. So I said it was strange because when I put an input in, nothing happened. It took a pretty big change in stick to get the airplane to turn.
So you can feel it when you move.
Yeah. So you can
You're flying like a
wrap your fist around it. Well, it was funny. The other thing was I was waiting for it to gain speed, and it never really got faster, because I'm like, we're flying 200-mile-an-hour airplanes. That thing's coming around, going around. You got to really be on it. But it was fun to fly something that was, a little bit more park flyerish, especially since we're getting ready to go to Best in the West, which is a turbine event. And so my buddy Barry and I have been out there flying, just kind of flying new airplanes or his airplane and trying to get, ready for that. And that's a strictly turbine event. So I've been, flying that more than the park flyer stuff. But it was good to get back with the guys and see them all. And, they were all excited to kind of hear my, what I've been doing and, clean bill of health. And they were happy to see me there. So the weather's getting better here in Arizona. Matter of fact, it was raining all day today, which is really strange. But, it was nice weather, and we were all out there for a little while, and it was fun. Oh, and guess who drove by on their bike? I forgot to tell you that. But,
are you talking about that one kid who likes to put stuff on the plane?
Yeah, he drove by, and I won't mention his name, but anyway, he drove by. He's like, "Hey, fellas," and he had a dog with him, and they were all laughing because they said he got a new dog, but the dog is like super hyper, and he matches his personality, because the dog was just running circles around. He's on a bicycle, right? So he's riding, and this dog is making circles around him. And after he got off, they're like, oh yeah, he got a new dog, and that dog is just, it's just a pain because he's got to be moving all the time. So he chases the airplanes. He's trying to, run on the when they come down. So anyway, it was pretty funny to see it, but it was good to see him too. He kind of waved as he went by, but it was kind of a good time.
So after this, for the NTSB report, so what would you recommend for, like you said, new people or Phil, for doing this kind of stuff, some safety things, or they just put in their new gyro, they're about to go out to the field, what are the things they want to check? What do they want to check or add to their list of, hey, right's right, left's left, up, down, what do they need to check before they take off?
Well, I think what Phil mentioned and what had kind of confused him, because he's fairly new to the flight controllers. Now, he's done it in quads, but quads are different.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different animal.
Flight controller is a little bit different animal. But for fixed wing, the thing that he mentioned is that he didn't understand that the control surfaces were supposed to go opposite. He's like, why do they go opposite?
Oh,
and so Charlie and I picked it up, and you wouldn't really think about it. If you go left, your aileron should go down, right? It should go right. Because what the stabilization is doing is it's correcting, because the stabilization is not there for you. You can fly the airplane without it.
Right.
The stabilization is for any disruption that you're not privy to. A wind gust, or something changes, or mostly wind if it's out there, right? And so if the wind shifts, and we know that for a fact, if you go up in altitude, sometimes the wind will be going one way, and the wind go down in altitude, the wind will be going another way. Perfect example, I think we were talking about balloons on one of our conversations. Our phone conversations, where you said, New
Mexico.
New Mexico, because it's got a very unique wind pattern that if you climb up to 3,000 feet, it's moving to the left. Climb up to 5,000 feet, it moves to the right, and they can make this little box pattern and stay in this, rather than just going up and getting taken to wherever,
Oz.
Taken to Oz. So when we picked the airplane up, that was the first thing Charlie did. Is he pitched the nose up and he watched, and he said, "This is going the wrong direction." because the tail section actually pitched up as well. It's supposed to, when the nose pitches up, you should get a downward trend, right?
Right.
So that if the wind pitches the nose, then the elevator corrects by giving it nose down, which means that, it's pushing the nose down so that the wind is not affecting it. Same way with the left and right on the rudder. I mean, on the ailerons.
So what I usually tell people if they're doing, once again, you turn on your gyro on, and then you got to decide, are you going to have the plane facing you, or are you going to have the plane away from you for doing this?
Right.
You know, and let's say you have the plane, going away from you. So you pick up you hold the tail and you pick the tail up, like you're diving. And then what should happen? Well, the elevator should go up like you're going to climb to correct it.
Right. Push
and you just have to get it in your head. And this is the hard part because people have to decide, everybody's different, right? So some people might be able to do it either way, but you need to do it the same every time.
Right.
Doing your check. So you don't confuse yourself by picking it up and having the nose facing you and you're like wiggling things around and you're like, oh yeah, that's good. And
we've been a victim of that too, right? I mean, you and I both picked the airplane up and I said, oh, left, right, left. Okay. Yeah, that's working. And it wasn't, it was opposite because normally I'm standing behind the airplane when I do that.
Right.
Early on, I think that confused us. I mean, we crashed I think my GWS F-15 was in the park.
Mm-hmm.
We had that problem. So that was just a regular check. It wasn't a gyro.
Well, yeah. But this is with a gyro.
Right, said left, and you were like, yep, that's right. And instead of saying left, right, I was opposite. I went left on the stick, or right on the stick and said left, right. And you were like, yep, that's it. And then when you threw it, it was all totally backwards.
Yeah. But the point is, you need to have two function checks.
Correct.
Right? Your normal function check to make sure your controls are going correct. Turning the gyro on and making sure the controls for the gyro correcting, gusts is correct to keep the plane level. Not that the controls are still moving in the right direction, that if a gust comes, tilts the wing, what should the control surfaces do? And so it may take you a little while to think about, because a lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff. If a wind gust brings my wing up, when I go back right on the stick, what are the controls doing? And that's one of the, actually, like I said, this kind of helps you out because it helps a person visualize what's going on with the plane when it's flying, and helps you think, what it should be doing. So anyway.
Well, and the other thing too that I would suggest is just making sure your orientation's correct, because a lot of times when we get to putting these things together, we want to put it right in the middle of the airplane, but it may not fit there. So then we have to find a place for it. So we may put it a little bit more to the left or a little bit more to the right, or we may have to turn it sideways or, put it upside down. And that requires a change, right, in orientation in the software.
Got to go in the software.
And, and he didn't, he mentioned that he was like, oh, I didn't know that either, that there's actually directions. Because it's, in your head, you think, oh, it's a gyro to correct. So it doesn't matter which direction I put it, but the corrections have to be, correct. And it could have been on that particular airplane, he could have mounted it. I didn't see where he mounted it, but, I know that if you take the canopy off, that there's places in there to put FPV stuff. And he may have mounted it sideways, or he may have mounted it, upside down or underneath the canopy or something, just to have the room to do it. I didn't really pay too much attention to that because he was.
And two, we're males. We don't like to read directions. So,
Yeah, Phil's a builder. He's pretty good about reading directions, but I think he, I don't know if he understood the correlation between all that.
Right.
So, and the other thing too is that, you got to remember that you controlling the airplane is also doing something to the airplane that your gyro can counteract, which is why people crash them, because when they go to pull up, the gyro says, oh no, the airplane's being pitched up, right? And so it pitches down, and the more you pull back, the harder it pitches forward, because it's
talk about gain a little bit so people can understand what gain is.
So the gain on the gyro is how fast it reacts to those disruptions. And so if you have very, very low gain, you're going to have a slower reaction. So if there's a little bit of of wind gust, then the airplane's going to start to pitch up, and then your control surfaces are going to say, okay, well, that's a big change. So they'll give you, the opposite change. And so you'll fly it, but it'll be a little bit what I call mushy, if that makes sense. So you'll fly it, but it's not real. It doesn't feel real solid. It just feels kind of like, oh, okay, I'm controlling it, but then it's kind of riding the wave kind of thing. Now, if you turn the gain all the way the other direction, you get incredibly fast changes in the control surfaces. And the problem with that is that if you have the gain turned up too high and you start flying faster and faster, the nose is constantly pitching and descending with the wind, right? So now if you get a little bit of a lift on the nose, you get a quick correction. And now if the gain is high, it's constantly overcorrecting because it's moving so fast. So what will happen is that your airplane will start going, like a sine wave. It gets,
and it'll start,
this little.
That's the way I kind of think of it. It starts jittering.
Correct.
You're like, what is it doing?
Right. And so you can actually on our airplanes and in some of these, you can actually put a gain knob. Like I have a rotary knob on my DX-18, and I can actually put the gain there. And it's good because if there's a higher wind, you want a little more gain, because if the wind's gusty, you want a little bit more of a quick reaction to keep the airplane flying level. But to me, there's a sweet spot at some point where you have not enough gain and it feels mushy. If you have too much gain, it feels too jittery, right? And to use your words, it's just too quick of a reaction, and the airplane will start fluttering. I mean, I've seen it where airplanes are like, because the elevator's back there moving up and down. And so you roll it back into where it feels like an actual aircraft flying, right? So it's cutting through the wind. It reacts the way I want it to react. And if the wind makes any changes, then the airplane doesn't really move. It's got a fast enough reaction to keep it going. And when you're flying airplanes that are much faster, in my case, the turbines, if you get it too fast of adjustment, you could rip the wings or control surfaces off your airplane because you're going so fast, or cause it to destabilize and just come apart. If you're too slow, then it just feels too lethargic. So it's good for me, having flown the faster airplanes and, tried to adjust that. I just was reading something that somebody posted, and they were talking about that too, that they did 3 or 4 flights. And now that they've got the gain and, everything else adjusted, there's a couple of different adjustments on the ones that we use. Gain is the biggest one because that's how strong the reaction is, to counteract it. But then we have latching, and we have a bunch of other stuff that is kind of a little bit deeper into it. But I won't go that deep into it. We're not using those on park flyers.
Did you know what kind of gyro Phil was using?
I don't. I think it was an Arduino board, because that's what he was taking out of. I mean, I think he took it out of a quad, or he bought one for that airplane. I don't necessarily think it was an actual gyro like we think about it. I think it was an actual flight controller board, because it was an FPV setup.
So if it's what I think what you're talking about, that type, it almost behooves him to bring out a tablet with him so that he could make adjustments, because those boards are quite limited what you can change, like changing the gain or changing. You actually have to go into the program or bring up, it has a program or an app where you can go in there and make corrections to the software for what it's doing. And since those things use PID loops and all this other stuff, so sometimes you might have to make adjustments to those. But also they have different modes, like return to home, circle, setting waypoints. And, you run into problems because you may have it when it gets to its waypoint. Does it make a 90-degree, knife edge for a turn, or does it make a nice, 15-degree turn, at this airspeed? And once again, a lot of times you can set the throttle, right? So you put it in the mode, and the throttle goes to half, and when it makes a turn, you can set all that stuff up. At times it can get a little overwhelming because you have so much control into those things, but once again, sometimes it helps to bring out a tablet, set up the basic stuff, get that down so you get that stuff working well, and then you can start working on all the other extra features. But it's just one of those things. It definitely helps to bring out, either if you have to use your phone, to use the I know for some of the Spectrum receivers with gyros in them, you can actually do it through your phone. And you could use a cable, through or Bluetooth.
Yeah. Actually, there's a Bluetooth. I think.
So it's just one of those things, just to have that stuff with you and have it ready to be used, just in case you run into this problem. And that way, you don't have to go all the way back home. And now you're not at the field, right? You tweak something, you go, now I got to wait till next Tuesday before I go out again. I mean, you could bring it with you to the field, land, go, that's not right. Throw it back on the air and go, okay, Mike, fly the plane. Now we'll turn it on. What do you think? You know what I mean? And you can make adjustments that way. Come down, land, make your adjustments, go back up.
I don't know if his heart would have made it through a third flight. He was pretty excited about the second one after all that happened. So I think he was ready to take it back home.
I'm happy for him that everything turned out okay, because who wants to go through all that effort, put all that gear in there, and you smash it all up? I mean, that's a terrible feeling. And
I've done that before. Yeah. I mean, he had what did he have? He had some kind of a hotliner glider that I flew, and we got it all the way to the corner, and it browned out or something, and hit the ground. And it was nothing I did. It was just,
you're right.
I think something. And he's a really good builder. I mean, he does really good work, but it just happens sometimes.
Yep.
And
hey, listen, I'm, like I said, I'm glad everything worked out for him. It gave us a good topic to, once again, because sometimes, like we forget about this, not forget, but, we don't touch upon.
We've just been doing it
because we've already gone through it, and, we're on to the next great thing, I guess. So it's good to kind of rehash this. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen the next time you go out there and go fly with Phil.
I am too. Actually, I told him, I was like, I'm probably not going to be here on this Tuesday. I said, but the following Tuesday, maybe I'll come back. And they're like, yeah, please do. So I think they were excited. Because they've, Charlie is a good pilot. He tested a couple airplanes, but they have crashed one or two. So they like it when I come out. But it's pretty exciting. And speaking of crashes, I was listening to the last podcast where Mike was talking about Holly Springs, and he lost his fun racer. What the heck? I can't believe that. I was like, what? I just was amazed. I was listening to it, and when he said, yeah, I just can't find it, I thought, no way. How did you – that thing has been through so much, and then to lose it at the place where you crashed it last, I just was like, oh, my gosh, that's fate all in itself. So, but the good news is, or what he said on the podcast kind of sparked my memory, and he said, oh, yeah, it's pretty much a done deal. Well, I think I sent a text right after that, and I said, hey, don't think it's a done deal, because Multiplex, or High Tech, I guess, who owns Multiplex, Multiplex came out with a new fun racer. It's actually not called a fun racer. It's called a Race Wolf. It's a
Race Wolf or Wolfhound or something.
Yeah, but it's basically a race plane like the fun racer that's been designed off of the FW109, the Fokker 109. And anyway, it launches inverted. It does the same thing. It's a little bit fatter than the fun racer, and I think it's slightly larger. But for Mike, it uses 3-cell batteries, so it's perfect for
I saw that. So because I didn't know anything about the plane after you sent that little thing out.
The link to us. Yeah, the link.
So when I was sitting there looking at it, they had a little video, and I was watching it, and I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. One, Mike will be very happy because, he'll be able to use his 2200s, 3 cells. The other thing that I thought was so cool is that they actually paired the motor
with the 3-cell.
With the 3-cell. So it's ripping for a 3-cell. And I was like,
it is.
Wow, that's awesome.
But I will tell you, a lot of people commented that they weren't really happy they couldn't run a 4-cell on it. So, I mean, I think if you put a 4-cell on it, you're going to burn the motor up. But that doesn't necessarily
do that, or you have to
switch
have
it
a
out.
tiny prop on it. Very small.
Yeah, that's right. Because the spinner's so big, though, I think your prop would disappear. You'd only have like 2 little things hanging
sticking out.
Because it's a big spinner on there. I mean, the Fokker 109 had a big fat spinner. Because I think the gun was through the middle of the spinner, wasn't it?
The cannon was.
Isn't that the one? The cannon was, yeah. So it was a little bit bigger, and it had I don't remember what kind of engine it had in it, but it used it for cooling as well. So, but yeah, I think it runs about $299, and there's a couple of places that are selling it. I did see it in stock in 1 or 2 places, but
yeah, it was. I think I saw it was like €230, and that comes out to
$299 US, I think, is what it comes out to be. But I was excited. I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, that's cool." So I think we'll have to see. I was hoping he'd be here tonight, but I know he had other plans and some other stuff got in the way. But I was interested to see what his thoughts were.
Well,
now he's not going to be able to custom paint it, I think, because it comes already painted.
Well, it does come painted. I mean, once again, the video that was accompanying that, they had 3 guys flying the same plane, which once again, it was no big deal. But all 3 are neck and neck, and they were kind of racing it, and they were weaving in and out amongst each other. I was like, oh, that's an accident waiting to happen. Somebody's going to blink, and it's not going to be pretty.
You had visions of the Tough Wing, didn't you?
Well, either the Tough Wing or the your orange plane when we were at AEF that one year, and they had like 9 of them out there flying. And
the erratics.
The erratic, yeah, and they were falling out of the sky like popcorn. Yeah.
That's right. Everybody was, because they were all 3Ding out there, and they're all of a sudden want to just go plunk, and they'd be like, "What happened?" And then because they'd lose orientation on which airplane was actually theirs.
Exactly. So, and I'm sure within a short order they're going to have just the kits, so, no markings on it. So it'd be a perfect candidate for repainting. But,
yeah, it's a fairly new airplane.
Hobby King has another pylon style plane that's a little bit cheaper than that one.
I've actually found that.
Yeah, although I think that one's a 4-cell.
It is a 4-cell, and it's a screamer.
Yeah.
I've actually flown that one. Actually, I repaired it. I think I told you that, right? I went out there and flew it with a guy, and he was flying around. And anyway, I was doing a low pass down the runway, and it sucked down onto the runway because everybody kept going, "Get lower, get lower." And I came down, and the prop went, bzz, and I touched the prop because it doesn't have landing gear or anything. Right. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the servos are on top of it. That the arms are on top so that you can land it on the belly. And I got it low enough that the prop hit the cement, and it went bzz, and then it just bang, pancaked on the ground and skidded to a stop. But because the prop was spinning so fast, it tore the motor mount loose. And the motor mount's basically molded into the foam. So now the motor mount's all loose, and the guy was like, "Yeah, you can have it," And I'm like, "No, I'll repair it, and then I'll bring it back to you." He goes, "You can't repair that. The motor mount's molded." I was like, "All right, give me a chance." So I took it home, and once again, I got out my glues and paints, and I even had the fluorescent green because his was a bright fluorescent green, and so I put it all back together, made it look nice. Got the new prop ordered. Brought it back to him like 2 weeks later because, we missed each other the second time around. And I had brought it out to him. I was like, "Here you go." He's like, "Did you buy a new one?" And I go, "No, I just repainted this one." Because it was easy to repaint. I had the color. It was that fluorescent green stuff. And so it was kind of funny. And he was like, "No way." And he put it, put it in the air. And he's like, "Wow, this flies even better." I go, "Well, it's got a, I think it was loose to begin with. That's probably why the prop hit the ground." But anyway, it's super fast, and it's fun to fly too.
How did that plane go together? I mean, was it a one-piece wing, or did the wings come apart? Or
the Hobby King one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the fuselage and everything is all one piece.
Okay.
And then the wing attaches. You glue the wing on, so it doesn't come apart. I think once you glue the wing on, it's all together.
Okay, because that's the nice thing about that about the multiplex one, because the wing comes apart. It goes together in less than 15 minutes.
Right.
You know, I guess it all screws together, which is nice. I mean, I like multiplex kits, but sometimes they could be a little fiddly. You know, and take a little while to put together. So that's nice to hear.
That's the thing with this Race Wolf RR. I think it's the RR Wolf or whatever they call it. But anyway, it goes together in like 15 minutes.
Nice.
So the motor and everything is included. You have to bolt. You have to screw the wings on. I don't even know I think the tail is maybe attached too. Maybe you put the tail on.
I think you attached the wings. I remember reading something about that, and they were like, "Yeah, that you do whatever with
the spinner and the
on."
Yeah.
So which is nice. Which is nice for Mike because he likes to travel with the planes, and being that they can break down like that, they go right in his golf bag.
Yeah, when he mentioned going back home with an empty golf bag, all I could imagine was those guys that are throwing those bags and they expect them to be like
throws it over the plane.
Yeah, and he gets ready to just like lift this thing and about throws it right through the engine, because he's like, "Whoa, it's really super light." I just had visions of that, some ramp guy just grabbing it and going, what kind of golf clubs are in this? Must be carbon fiber,
right?
Because they're really super lightweight.
Hey, that reminds me for AEF, when I'd come down from Alaska or whatever, I'd bring you a plane or something, and watching the girls loaded on, they go to pick up the box and to put it on the conveyor. Right. They're like, they're bending their knees and, they put on their power belt, they get chalk on their hands, they reach down and they damn near throw it through the wall, whoa, what's in there?
Grab this piece of balls.
They're just like, what's in there? And I'm like, dreams. Nothing in there. Yeah. That's too funny.
Clouds.
That's right. Dreams and clouds.
Yeah, it was funny. That's funny. Something came across my YouTube channel when I was in school, and I was looking something up, and it came across my feed or whatever, and I was probably trying to find the podcast episode, and it was this guy going up an elevator with a Thor hammer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I'll have to send it to you, but it was he would set it down on the escalator, and then people would like try to lift it, and they couldn't lift it, and then when he got to the top of the escalator, he would walk off with it, and it was funny because these people were like both hands trying to lift this Thor hammer off the escalator, and what they had done is in the handle, it was electromagnetic.
Oh, really?
So when he set it on the metal and twisted the handle, it would electromagnetically hold to the escalator, and then people try to lift it up, and then when he'd reach down and twist the handle, he could just pick it straight back up because it didn't weigh hardly anything. But anyway, it kind of reminded me of the bag. I was thinking about that. I was like, oh yeah, you could put some electromagnetic bags, where Mike just picks it up and walks around with it, sets it down. Those guys can't even lift it. That'd be pretty funny. So, well, I am excited. Next month, around October, second week in October or so, we're headed out to California to Best in the West. They didn't hold it last year because of COVID, and I went 2 years ago, but this will be another good episode. When I come back from there, we can talk about all the fun jet stuff. I don't know whether people like it or not. Nobody's complained so far. Talk about turbines, but yeah, we'll have to. And then I can't believe it, but surprisingly enough, the Electric Festival is not too far off. We normally have Shannon Gallagher sometime in the November-December range to talk about it because it's only in February and it's not too far away.
You're starting to close down, my friend.
It is, and what else is coming new? Hopefully my shop will be done, before too long, and I'll have a new podcast arena and better lighting, and
you won't be in the cave.
Won't be in the cave. That's right. I won't be hanging out and in the cave. That's right. I think the wife is getting excited, so hopefully that'll be the next few weeks, and we'll get our stuff moved in, and I'll be excited because all my stuff will come out of storage and
I'm not
ready
to help you.
Yeah, she wondered that. I told her.
I'm help you move again. Sorry.
Well, it's different. This time you have to actually move it back into the house. Last time you just move it to storage. So, but yeah, I actually went over there the other day to get something out of the storage bin. And I was looking at all my stuff, and I'm like, I need to get all this out so I can, start building again and flying. And when I went and flew with the Park Flyer guys, I just was like, man, I should bring an airplane out, But everything I have is literally under, storage. It's all in boxes. So, and we still have all those new kits.
That we do.
So I have to, try to figure out how to build some kits too. That'll be good. So I'm excited. Perfect. Well, man, our hour is almost up. So that's crazy. I can't believe I'm back. And where did these last 2 months go? You guys did a good job, though. I was kind of wondering how that was going to work without me, but not that you couldn't do it without me, but it just was funny because I'm usually the intro, and when you don't have the intro, it was kind of awkward. Like, hey, nobody's introducing us. So it was funny. I told my wife, I was like, oh yeah, I think that first episode they did, Jay was kind of like, Well,
it was my tempo. I mean, I got my shtick. I can't do my shtick anymore if I'm running the show.
I know, right?
Hi, I'm Jay from the hills of Texas. Crap, that doesn't work.
I know, it was pretty funny. But y'all did a good job. I really thought it was good episodes, and I loved listening to you guys talk to Doug. And it sounds like Mike had a really good time out there in Holly Springs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sad we missed it. I was so close. I was literally just an hour away in Charlotte. But I unfortunately had class.
Well, you hadn't appeased the RC gods.
I know.
You hadn't given them a sacrifice. Mike gave his sacrifice.
That's right.
Given yours.
Fundraiser. I know.
Building or crashing or flying anything in so long. So, the RC gods were displeased with you, so they didn't give you the time off. So
you're right.
So,
Actually, that's probably something I should chalk up to the fact that I've lasted a full year without crashing anything. Actually, I haven't crashed.
That's one good way of looking at it.
Well, and it's not like I haven't flown, but I flew with when I was down at your place and at the electric festival. So I've just been really lucky, I guess. So, but it keeps me from buying new stuff, which is not so fortunate.
Well, no, actually, it's very fortunate because the like you said, the best of the West is coming up, and you don't need to be spending any money on toys right as you're about to finish everything up on your house. So.
I know.
Look what I brought. Oh, hey, the water heater didn't come, and we need to buy another one.
Right. Now I got to sell my turbine. That's funny. I was really embarrassed the other day. We had somebody at the house, and they were talking about, we were up there. So my wife and I were both up there, and it was the blind guy. It sounded bad. The guy doing the blinds for the house. Not a blind guy, but the guy doing the blinds for the house. He came in to measure, right? He came in to measure, and he's like, well, what's this room in here? I go, well, this is my shop. And my wife explains the whole reason for the new house is because I got tired of his RC airplanes being, all over the dang place and on my kitchen table and blah, 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 blah. And so now he's going to have his own place. And he goes, you fly RC? What do they look like? Well, I pulled one up, and the first one was was the jet. And, of course, it's 8 foot tall and it's flying, and he's like, holy cow, man. And right in front of my wife, he goes, how much does that cost? And I looked at him and I go, let's not really talk about that right now. And she rolled her eyes and she goes, yeah. And she goes, I don't even want to know. She just turned and walked off. I told him, I said, that probably wasn't the best thing to ask me in front of her.
That's what you have, not having the Park Flyer stuff up first.
I know, right?
I should have this for less than $100.
Well, that's what I said later, but the damage had already been done. Oh, I have a saint for a wife. She doesn't really ask. She just looks at me and shakes her head. So.
I think they just call it denial.
She got a new house out of it.
She got a new house. So, win-win.
So I was going to say, I don't know who won this battle. I mean, I got a nice little toy, but she got a brand new house. I'm like, this ain't right. Something's not right here. I did get a shop out of it, but yeah, she got the rest of the house. So we're excited.
Well, little does she know until we come out for AAF again, we take over your shop and the rest of the house.
That's going to be difficult because she made sure that it was all separate. So we'd have to take over the garages first, and before we ever moved into the house, because the shop is actually separated from the house. So we would have to carry stuff into her side. So I'm thinking, we may set up a table in the little 3-car garage, and then we can move between the two, but we probably won't get it really in the house.
I'm thinking that the TV's in there and the kitchen's in there. We come in for a snack, and then we're talking, and we come out and we put something on the TV.
Funny you say that.
We're tweaking on things and talking and snacking, and next thing you know.
Did I mention that there's a kitchen and a TV in the shop? So I once again, she was very. Yeah, I know. She was very thoughtful when it came to this. So yes, there is a refrigerator, a sink, microwave, kitchenette, in the shop, and a television on the wall.
Well, so. I could see why, because you ruined that last countertop when you're up there chopping things on her countertop.
No, that was the glue. We got
the glue. The you're up there with the X-Acto knives on the marble.
Oh yeah. Well, the marble didn't work.
You're cutting something in the rubber through the rubber into the marble. I'm just like.
No, it was Corian. The marble won't cut, but the Corian did. So yeah, I left a little scratch mark on it. She wasn't too happy about that either. So, but I pointed out the glue, so she was more focused on the glue than anything else. Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
You just need a little dab of.
Oh, right.
Just a dab of CA, half the bottle.
Well, yeah. The good news is I had some debonder, so I was able to get it off. So, but yeah, she wasn't too happy. She was not very happy at that. But so I'm sure our listeners probably have similar issues, but hopefully that'll all come to an end here in another few weeks.
Well, if our listeners have a good story to tell of how they ruined their kitchen or their wife's favorite piece of furniture, hey, drop us a note or go on our Facebook page and start a little thread there. And that would be pretty interesting to read. Who has the worst story of something in their house they ruined?
Yeah, and please don't burn down your house. I don't want those stories. But, yeah, if you have a comment or a question, give us a call, 830-444-4943, or jump on our email at parkfirepodcast@gmail.com, or jump on our Facebook listeners group and let us know. So consistently growing that, and I get requests every week for new members, so we're excited. And feel free to post it. We need to get on there a little more often ourselves, so maybe I'll post some pictures from Best in the West on our listeners group.
Oh, that'll be nice.
It'd be kind of fun. Yeah, it'd be kind of fun. So, are you doing any flying this week?
I know the weather's been... I figured I'm going to get a call from Jim here in the next couple of days because we finally, our weather finally broke. We were having record highs the past 2 weeks. So I think his wife said, "You can't go out there, you idiots, 105-degree heat." Flying.
Sure. Take some water.
Take some.
How's his foot? Is it better?
Yes, it's better. It's been 2 weeks since I've seen him, so it should be better. He was seeing the doc, so
good.
I'm expecting good things.
Well, good. Well, I'm excited. Hopefully we'll have Mike back next episode. I think we've got a couple of emails from some new guests that we've kind of reached out to, and they've agreed to come on the show. So hopefully we'll have that. And holidays are coming around the corner, so we should have some holiday episodes. So yeah, I think the end of this year is coming up. They're in the last quarter, and man, it's just zipped by. Can't believe we're 2021 went. I'm ready for it to be over, though.
Yeah, I can imagine. This has not been the best year for you.
No, we won't go into that. We don't have time. But anyway, Well, our time is up, so thanks for listening, and thanks for joining us tonight, or this morning, I guess, on the Park Fire Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona.
And I'm Jay from the hills of Texas.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.